God's priority is for families. It's up to you and me. Let's put family first. Strong families building strong societies. It's up to you and me. Let's put family first. Marriage between man and woman is what God says. First. Just follow his direction, that is the only way. First. Let's build a better Barbados, better families. Happy, secure, safe and stable homes and communities.
Greetings everyone. This is your program Family and Faith Today. With us in the studio we have a young man, a very articulate, handsome young man by the name of Fabian Sargeant. There's a lot to be said about this young man. I'll just start the ball rolling and then we'll go from there. And to let you know as well, my name is Mathurin. I'll be your host, and we also have my co-host, my lovely wife, Sister Reuel Marville Mathurin. He is the founder and executive director of Men's Empowerment Network Support. He also has a master's in public health and a bachelor's of science with honors from the UWA, University of the West Indies. And he's also the founder of Safe Zone, shaping adolescents to function in their environment. There's a lot to be said and a lot from this young man. We can hear a lot more from him this morning. So, Reuel, you go ahead.
Yes, this is the Family and Faith Freedom Barbados Vision Statement. We, the Family Faith Freedom Barbados, we are a registered charity number 1447. We envisage a nation of strong, healthy families, sustainable development, and true freedom. Our mission is to transform our society by promoting biblical truth, fostering strong, natural families, building healthy communities, and defending true freedom.
Amen and amen. Defending true freedom. Now, Fabian is a man that knows how to handle himself under pressure. So I'm going to put him on a bit of pressure now, Fabian. I want to listen to this statement very carefully. Too many of our men are suffering from low self-esteem and therefore are allowing themselves to be outperformed by women. Is this statement accurate? Is it an exaggeration? Or is it a whole lot of the other stuff? You tell me.
Greetings, everyone. It is a loaded statement, and I always like to be fair. We don't just arrive, and I believe that our behavior is heavily influenced on our environment. It's also influenced by our childhood experiences, and even our childhood traumas. So historically and even culturally, we as men, and I'm trying to lay the foundation to bring to understand where the low self-esteem may come. As boys, we've not been teaching our boys to be assertive. Boys within our environment, within our culture, has often been beaten down. We've been told some of the harshest things. Our emotions, we were never allowed to express our emotions. You get beat and say, shut up in here. You know, you were never allowed to feel pain or hurt. You're never allowed to express disappointment. If he is a man in here, shut up in here. You know, only last night I was watching a video on social media where a grandmother slapped a boy in his mouth for talking.
Wow.
We were not allowed to talk and express ourselves. And talking and expressing ourselves is a big way of our confidence, because we're allowed to express what we're feeling. You know, we've not been taught an emotional vocabulary, so ultimately you have feelings and you're not able to connect those feelings to specific words. So oftentimes everybody, you ask the average person, so how you doing? Hey, good. Hey, all right. Hey, okay. Without any real understanding of what they're feeling. You know, so they don't, their vocabulary as it relates to their emotions is very, very limited. Everything is vexed, you know. So if you're frustrated, I vex, or you know, I'm mad, I'm angry. So everything manifests as angry. Well, there are many other emotions in there, and because we've not been taught those, it's very difficult to express them. With that being said, because of a lot of these issues, which I can group under one heading as childhood traumas, you know, it really impacts on how men treat to themselves. Because you've destroyed the boy. If that boy does not have a good self-esteem or strong self-esteem, if he's not confident enough to express or articulate his feelings and emotions and tell you what's going on in his head, you know, then as he grows from childhood into adolescenthood, where he's constantly evolving, his biology, his emotional and psychological disposition is evolving. He's now becoming a man. He's now getting familiar with who he is, trying to understand the world, trying to understand his body, because then as adolescent you become a lot more sexual.
Right.
But your self-esteem has been beaten down from very, very, very early. And then a lot of this is then manifested in manhood. When you're now having relationships, you're not becoming a parent, you're not becoming independent. So a man just don't arrive at being or having a low self-esteem. It is a gradual or a developmental process from what happens from childhood into manhood.
So one can almost say
across communities.
One can almost say we were stunted in our youth, and that development in itself was misshapen.
Yes, correct. And you know, you've got to understand the history, because we try to move forward without understanding
what
the
came before
context.
Right.
Because our grandparents and great-grandparents, they can only parent based on what they knew and how they were parenting. Our parents can only parent based on how they were parenting and what they know.
Right.
So that is where a lot of the challenges came. But in contemporary society, we now have the whole idea of parenting sessions and empowerment and training and, you know, understanding that you can't do the same thing over and over and over and expect a totally different result.
So we're going to go forward with that. I like what you said. We're learning new ways to deal with all issues. I'm going to let my wife tackle you on this next one. You handled the first ball well, so we'll go to the next.
Second ball. Why did you take up the role and responsibility for advocating for men's issues in this country?
So they had a very, very personal, very, I don't know how the best way to put it. Try hard not to speak about it too much publicly, but I had an experience where we've lost a family member at the hands of a male, and coming out of that, you know, I thought that if that male had a space and a place where he could express himself, where he could talk and share, and really get the necessary support, maybe that relative will be alive today. And in trying to assist families and Barbados generally, when we look at the whole idea of violence against women across the community, you know, I really thought that it was necessary to have a men's group or organization that focused not on men generally, but on the social and emotional disposition of men, because a lot of what we think is what manifests into our behaviors. And if we can get men to think more healthy, more positive, then we can have a lot more positive behaviors. And also letting men understand that they have choices. Oftentimes men believe they don't have a choice. You know, so, and then there's no support, because it's life. You go through challenges, but then what? There's no one to turn to, no one to talk to, nobody to give you good advice or to even guide you down a positive road. So hence, that is the reason why I thought it necessary. There was a void that needed to be filled. And myself, along with my very, very amazing team of volunteers, counselors, psychologists, social workers, everybody, we have been able to, I don't think we filled the void totally, but we've been able to at least provide that much needed support through education and programming and so forth for men and boys in Barbados.
Well,
Ryan, could you pause for a minute? I know you want to ask a question, but you know what? I always got a point B. You said a very important word, and I was praying that you had said it, so good. You said that word support.
Yes.
And that's very important. What I wanted to know, how as we as women can support men, especially when they're going through situations. Well, generally, no. Let me switch that. How can we support men?
Very interesting question. I don't know if you can make the answer. But I think that women can first start supporting men in a positive way, but understanding who they are as individuals first.
Okay.
You see, oftentimes we believe that we want to help the other person up there. And we're trying to help that individual in a situation that we ourselves are broken in. And I guess for women to really provide that real support for men, in a real meaningful way, women gotta understand who they are as individuals first.
Right.
But I can get a little more practical. I think that women can allow men to be able to be vulnerable and not use that vulnerability as a weapon. Being vulnerable, men for that maybe listening, being vulnerable means being able to express who you are as an individual in a way that you're not embarrassed, you're not ashamed, you're able to speak about things that are deep, things that shape you, who you are, things that shape your thinking. And yes, it can be painful because we are coming from, oftentimes, a very hurtful place of childhood traumas. We've got to accept the sexual, physical, emotional abuse that exists within our homes. So we men are coming from a real bad place sometimes. But being able to go back and relive those memories and deal with them in a real serious way, and being able to trust our female counterparts in such a way that we know that will not be used against us at some point in time. And that is the challenge right there, because oftentimes there are men who may want to be vulnerable, and then from the time we break that trust, we shut down. Men are shut down because it takes a trust you with some information about me and my dark past, or things that I went through, things that really impact where you are. And here you are, as we get a noise, you trade in my face. That's one. Support also can be, like for our men's organization, I would say we've had tremendous, we embrace women. We are not against women at all. Although we're a men empowerment organization, we believe that we can only be empowered with the support of women. I mean, I have a wife, we have daughters, we have sisters, mothers. It cannot be a situation where it's us and you or them and us. We all have to coexist together. And like for our organization, when we first started, and women who understand that men need their space. The women would come if we were supposed to meet for 5 o'clock. Those women, and if you're listening, thank you very much. These women would bring sweet bread, cut up, cake, cut up, sandwiches, nicely laid out. They got in Marville, Sargeant, water, and they will come and they will put it in the room where we're meeting. So when the men come at 5 o'clock, we at least got a little beverage and a little bite that we can be comfortable in our space. Women allow their men to go ahead, go to the men's meeting. And when we start the meeting, our meeting is a minimum of 3 hours. They got enough to talk about. I know we call you ladies, can I come home because sometimes we have the meeting and then the meeting after the meeting. So we're also in the gap for fresh conversation because men have so much to talk about. And being able to support the men and not pressure men. I don't men know that that is your space. Because men and women are different in terms of how we communicate, how we socialize. A woman sit on the phone and talk to her friend for hours, not men. If you check our society, men will run to the ram shop, with the time where you play the dominoes. These days is a block. And yes, they have a lot of negative influences in those spaces, but the men prefer to be in those negative spaces more so than being in a house with them. You have a woman that look forward all the time and grumbling. And being honest, You're
being honest, we appreciate that.
Men talk about, especially, boys just say the mother's quarreling all the time, the house got clean, this got do, what you want to do this, what you want to work, all of that which is playing on the mind. And then men who may be married or in other relationships or whatever, there's a lot of constant bickering and being in those 4 walls, can really do something to a man and make socialize differently. So they find outdoor spaces to really go and offload or to get away from those issues.
Ryan, I'm sorry.
But after our brother would have said that we need women to compliment the men, I shouldn't have any growth with you.
Thank you. I just want to add a little something before you. No, I really appreciate. I pray that women will be listening to this. It has helped me as well. I've learned to be very quiet. I'm learning to attest to that. I've learned to be very quiet. Sometimes I have to close the mouth. Sometimes when I see particular things. And I find that has helped me as a woman. So I really appreciate it. It wasn't ruffling my feathers at all.
On yourself first.
Correct.
You see, we was working for everybody else.
Correct.
If you work on yourself, you will see changes in others.
Because I found as a female, I have this motherly instinct. And something happened to me yesterday that indicated that now I would have taught preschool for a number of years. And I saw one of my students who is now going into 4th form, he told me. And I saw him, and he was holding 2 parcels. And I said, okay, let me put it there. I started to baby him, and then said to him, well, stop, he's a big boy. He said, I'm fine. And he was being so polite. But then I realized, Reuel, you are you have this motherly thing, stop. He can handle the little cup. That is not going to break his arm, Reuel. Relax. In my mind, and then I stopped. I said, okay, all right. So I know that we as women tend to like baby, where we need to release. So I really appreciate what you said. Yes, Ryan, you can continue.
Oh dear. So you're blessed and everyone with your presence this morning, Brother Fabian. Now we're going to bring it back home, because I should have said this at the beginning, but I guess because of the exuberance of the entire interview, we are talking about men and the church, or men as their relationship with the church should be. Now I want to bring you to this question because when we introduced you, we asked you, or we would have identified the fact that you are the founder of Safe Zone. Adolescents, you're working with young people. And you will share this morning, you have a session going on presently where the young men who are being taught the rules of etiquette, how to carry themselves, how to behave at functions, etc. Where do you think all young people stand when it comes to church? Do all young men really see the need for a church or understand the importance of being a Christian?
So we started by saying that our behavior is heavily influenced by our environment. And I don't want, you see, to just jump and say that young men are not interested in the church. There are some of them who have not even been introduced to the church.
No.
You know, you have no influence where you are not. And I found that the church has been extremely absent in many spaces. And then for excuses, I'm being honest, now the church collectively, in Barbados specifically, is the largest institution.
By far.
Collectively.
By far.
And the church has the ability to create some societal change beyond government if the church understands its power that it has within its group. And I'm talking collectively. There's so many territorial type of behavior and segregation that I don't know how that collective group can function. But if the church ever really tap into its strength, which is its human resources, its ability to impact lives, I think we would have a total different environment. I work with young people, and most of them have not been to church. It may sound strange. I remember when I was working, I was doing in one of the organizations that I worked, and I used to do a lot of interviews with young people. And one of the first few questions is always, are you a Christian, or are you involved in a religion, and state whichever religion. So most of the things, no religion, or even if most are Christian, have you been to church? And I asked, have you been to church? You've never been to church, or have been to church only when you were a child. Most of them have not even been Christian. And this is a part of society that is dwindling, that we don't even pay attention to. There are many children who are coming into this world. That was a part of our landscape. That was an introduction to the church and an introduction to God. You're not getting Christian, so there's no introduction to God. There's no presence of God in their lives. It's not in the homes. So how do you know what these children or these young men specifically to say, well, look, how you embrace the church, how you embrace God? How do you embrace something that has never been introduced to you in a wholesome way? Sometimes, if ever, but even if it was never introduced to you in such a way that would be interesting. I also believe that we are creatures of patterns, and a lot of what we do are patterns. You can come in and sit in the same place, you can be the same way, you can behave the same way, you can treat. We have patterns in our lives that we don't even acknowledge, and the church is no different. The church has a way of doing things. There's a pattern that the church doesn't. And again, I'm talking
general elected,
who do not want to change because for many years we've done it this way, and we can continue doing it this way. When that particular way
was not working.
It's not working. You're crying out. I was there speaking to a particular church, and someone told me, but the church is all out. The church can't do no more. He said, but if you are of the opinion you cannot do anymore, then you cannot do anymore because it's a mindset. It starts in the mind. If you start a race and say you can win this race, you will not win the race.
Doesn't make sense starting at all.
You don't. And even in terms of resources, so there's a lot. So when we speak of men not being interested in the church, we have to put that into context. Well, how can I be interested in something that there's no meaningful, nobody has really introduced it to me in any way? And when you do introduce it to me, it comes across as very boring or more about you than me. You try to sell me something about you and not necessarily about me. It is not attractive. In this day and age, everything is about attraction. It's about social media and what looks appealing to the eye and so forth. But the church is saying this is what we've done for all the years. We are not changing what we do, how we package it, how we present it. We will continue this way. So what will happen is that the interest will continue to be on the decline. And so for now, and this is not me, because coming out to the last census, most persons identify as non-religious or religious, okay, and it is getting worse. So there will come a point in time that the church will be very, very, it will never disappear, but the interest will not be as much as it was 30, 40 years ago, unless the church, again, in its truest sense, acknowledge the evolving environment, the evolving needs of the people, and repackage the Word of God in such a way that it can reach those people, particularly young people and men.
My wife is going to follow up on that because she has a question that ties in directly to what you just said.
I really think that he did answer the question. The question basically was, how would you say the church has developed the young men in this country? I think you did answer, but I believe that there's more that you could say.
How do you develop the young men?
And before you put back to ball, what more can the church do? Because you just said that the church appears as boring, not of interest to many of our young people. What more can the church do?
Okay, so your question is,
It basically tied into what he's saying. What role would you say the church has in developing the young men in this country? And he asked what more the church can do. So,
right. So I think, don't get me wrong, I may come across as if again church and lashes, but the church historically has really benefited our society in a really major way.
Of course.
It has been the
It's true.
foundation for our value system.
Yes.
Even if I like to be very honest, I don't go to church every Sunday, but the fact that I went to church, I was confirmed. I have that, and God is a major part of my life. And that came from the foundation that was laid over the years. And there are many people who, based on how they live their lives, they may not be very active in a church, but they have that foundation, especially
Morals,
understanding their role in society, even as fathers, as
Very true,
husbands,
very true.
as general citizens, and understanding what's right and wrong, and how to treat people and how to treat themselves, and these type of things. So the church has definitely benefited men. What I think needs to happen is that men, for some reason, our needs are changing. The social environment is evolving. There are so many influences out there. The social media, there's a lot more access to things like pornography. There's a lot more access to let's say women in next to nothing. The music has been super vulgar, and the influences are extremely strong. I think the church needs to find its space in the social media environment. I think the church is really absolutely outside of posting services on Sundays and other things. I find as if there's nothing else. You know what I mean? Like the anything else the church can do to be present, even if it is having messages to counteract what's there, you know, be a lot more frequent within social media. When I scroll through Instagram or Facebook, I am telling you, if I see anything about the church, maybe I want it, if ever. You know, and I think the church, if you really want to have influence, you know, my good friend is used to say you have more influence really or not. So if you are not present in social media, you cannot have influence there. If you're not present in spaces that men frequent and you're in fun men and boys, you have no influence. So the question then is, how does the church become a lot more influential and present? You know, and then the question from you is, how can that be done? And I just mentioned it. I think the church needs to understand its power in terms of the skill sets it has within its congregation. I don't think that churches do what I would consider a skills audit. You don't go through our congregation of 100 or 200 or 50 people and say, okay, these are the individual skills of everybody here. How do we pool our resources, our skill sets, to then create something that is so major that it starts to impact lives of men? If it is that you really want to get men, and it doesn't only have to be men, because it can be women, it can be different segments of society, but utilizing your resources. We are super resource rich. We always think to do things will cost a lot of money. But if you tap into your space, tap into the people that support you, you will see that doing things will become a lot easier. But we have this issue where we have problems with building relationships, you know, and even within the church, there's still a lot of segregation. Sometimes sometimes people don't even share the same vision. You know, so you sit as part of a management committee. One body want to go left, somebody want to go right. You know, if everybody go right, this body don't support it. And there's still a lot of challenges. And I always say, as I mentioned to you, but let me connect this to the church. If the church really wants to impact people, the church will fix itself. The church has to be able to now create an environment, an enabling environment for their members, for yourself, from management background, where you can be a lot more productive in a very collective and unified way. And then you can go out, because trust me, as a counselor, as a social worker, your clients feel your energy. And if your energy is not right, I'm telling you, we are seeing it. You go back to the law of walls and barriers. So the church has to fix itself too in this whole process.
I can tell you for a fact that if we had already, we have it here for the entire morning. There's so much to be said. But our time is expired. We want to thank our guest again, our brother Fabian Sargeant. He's a young man who is doing so much. We want to thank the persons who would have made this recording possible as well. We have our host here as well, but we also want to thank Family, Faith, Freedom Barbados, the persons, or should I say the organization, that would really brought this program into being. This has been Family and Faith today. And before we leave, let's remind persons as well, we have our coming rally in November, and we want persons to get on board for that. That's going to be at the Bay Street at Esplanade in November. Thank you so much.
God's priority is for families. It's up to you and me. Let's put family first. Strong families building strong societies. It's up to you and me. Let's put family first. Marriage between man and woman is what God says. Just follow His direction, that is the only way. Let's build a better Barbados, better family.